If you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted in business, this episode is for you. Josh Kosnick shares how one narcissist on his team triggered a lawsuit, cost him a firm of over 250 people and billions in asset under management, and forced him to rebuild his identity from the ground up. You'll hear how he walked through anger, grief, and a 2-year legal battle, and why he can now honestly say thank you for the worst day of his career. Inside this conversation, we dig into how to spot narcissists before you hire them and the exact interview questions that reveal whether someone can take responsibility or will always blame others. Josh breaks down how to deal with narcissists that you're already tied to by staying in facts instead of feelings, so you don't get dragged into emotional chaos or gaslighting. We also unpack the idea of Chyros time and his 5 bridges framework, showing you how to reset your spiritual life, protect your health, reorder your relationships, and start leaving your legacy daily instead of waiting for some future someday. I'm excited to introduce Josh Kosnick, who is the founder of Chyros Coaching and EOS Implementer. He helps leaders align vision with execution and turn struggle into strength. A serial entrepreneur has built and exited 3 businesses. Josh empowers others to lead with authenticity, transform pain into purpose, and live with meaning, resilience, and generosity. Josh, what is happening, brother? It is so good to see you. I had a chance, obviously, to be on your show, and we have so many similarities. I guess before I even get into that, what I would ask, if somebody's just hopped on, they're like, what am I going to get from listening to Josh? What's my major takeaway? What do you think that somebody, when they get a chance to spend time with you, what's that major takeaway?
Such a great question. I think that one of the best compliments that I've ever received is that I am direct in a way that makes people want to be better. And so for me, it's just leading through authenticity. Today, I'm sure we'll dive into some of my story and overcoming hardships, mental despair, and all the different things. But I just want to leave people better anytime we have an interaction.
Yeah, I like that, man. And was that something that came naturally to you, truly leading with authenticity? Because I will say, for my journey, it took me about a company and a half to figure that out, right? Like, I think I've always been the same guy, but I wasn't always showing up as the authentic leader I am today. Was that something that came natural for you, Josh, or did you learn that through various adversities that you faced and just growing and maturing as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I would say in my professional career, it's become natural, but only because of how I grew up. And I grew up with a hard-nosed dad, great dad, but hard-nosed. I may have heard "I love you" 5 times by the time I was 18. He's become a softie in his older years, especially with grandkids. But the one person I was seeking affirmation and approval from, I never got it. And at least as a child. He's done a much better job now. And it was funny, I was on a drive with my wife down to see the in-laws, I don't know, a few years into marriage. And she looks at me and she goes, "You don't need any affirmation, do you?" And I was like, pause. And I was like, "No, I actually don't." Now, here's where the kicker came in. She goes, "But do you think I do?
Mm.
Do you think the kids do? Do you think your employees do?" And it was one of those, oh shit moments. To have to look in the mirror as our great spouses, force us to do. But so for me, going to the authenticity piece is the reason I share that story is I learned to live without needing affirmation and got it from God and myself. And therefore, I don't know any other way than to show up other than myself.
So I think what your wife did is fantastic, because one of the things I coach on certainly is people they thrive on recognition. I imagine you would agree with that. And yet again, similarities. My dad and I, as much as he did love me, I didn't say that word to my dad until the day I left for college. Into his later years, he also became softer, and it's interesting how that works. But what do you see in the workplace, brother? Because again, you've been very successful. You continue to coach these folks. Is, as I call it, EPR, encourage, praise, and recognize. Is recognition a piece of what you have grown to do, or do you stay true to, you know what, I don't need it, so I'm not going to give it? I'm guessing I know the answer, but I'll
Yeah.
let you give it to us.
No, my wife's call out was timely and it was appropriate. And I'm much better at giving others recognition. I don't know about you, JM, but because I didn't get it growing up, I still get uncomfortable when I get it. Like if
Mm.
I get public praise, my skin actually crawls. Not because I don't appreciate what the person's saying, but because I'm so certain in who I am and just don't necessarily need that. It just makes me a little bit uncomfortable, and that's something I'm working on because I've talked to my coach, over the years about it. I've talked to some great friends, but in the workplace, what I'm seeing from other entrepreneurs and high achievers is they're actually doing a fairly good job of recognition. I think that there's some more work to be done on the authenticity side. Some of them tend to be guarded. They don't know the line between being vulnerable and too vulnerable. And that is a skill set and a line that people need to walk as a leader or as an owner, because you don't want to breed insecurity in your people if you're being so vulnerable that you're saying, hey, I'm up against the wall financially. And that makes them feel like they may not have a job next week if the things don't go well, right? So there is a line that leaders have to walk in being vulnerable and authentic. But I think that, well, let me take that back. Vulnerable, yes, there's a line to walk. Authenticity, I think you got to be you. And at the same time, learn what your people need. Because just like my wife called me out on, just because I don't need recognition or affirmation doesn't mean that my people or her or my kids don't need it and actually crave it.
Yeah, and to answer your question, do I get uncomfortable? Through years of conditioning, I will say no, with the caveat that it just happened the other day. Because I recently have gone through quite a transformation with, just my body in terms of I dropped 45 pounds in 12 weeks. Okay. That was not the intent. It's just what happened. And people, oh man, you look great. And here's what happens for me. I always want to say, oh, you look great too. But what I've learned through the years is, look, they're giving you a compliment. It's their gift. And
Yep.
all I have to say is thank you. 2 words, pretty simple. Thank you. I don't have to give them a compliment back. Of course, if I feel it and I see something that I want to call out, of course I will. But I notice this mental gymnastics that I do, Josh, and it's just fascinating that you bring it up because it happened just the other day, and I was like, no, just thank you. It's actually pretty simple. Just say thank you.
Yeah.
So it's pretty funny. Uh, Tell me about the adversity, brother, because this is the one thing that I'm sure you would give your dad a ton of credit for. I know my parents for sure. Learning to deal with adversity, because you certainly have, and you can share your story because I think it gives great context. But I see so often people are so surprised or they're going to crumble under adversity when it's like, hey man, guess what, it's like the sun rises and the sun sets. It's just part of life. So why are we crumbling? Why are we freaking out? Let's go ahead and deal with it. What was that experience like for you, and is that a skill set you kind of learned from mom and dad?
Yeah, well, I don't know that I can directly attribute it to mom or dad. I think that my dad did a great job of not being a snowplow parent. And for you Southerners that don't have to deal with snowplows, maybe you don't understand this analogy. But snowplow parents are different from helicopter parents. They plow all the kids' problems out of the way and therefore don't really equip them for life. My dad, if I failed, if I screwed up, he was letting me walk right through it. But my adversity, I want to say this, none of us get out of life unscathed. We're all going to face adversities and we're meant to walk through them. So my adversity came June 16th of 2021. And I'm leading an organization of 250 people. Uh, we're managing $4 billion of assets. We're in the financial planning world. And life was, from the outside looking in, just Joshua had the world by the balls, if you will. And I had a cancer on my team. And this is someone I had recruited, mentored, developed, taught him all the tools to success. And yet none of that was enough for him. He ended up being quite a narcissist, and now I teach others how to interview for those because I have so much personal and intimate experience with. But I get a call June 16, 2021 from an executive vice president of the Fortune 100 company that I own my company underneath. And they said, meet me at the Marriott. And I'm like, well, that's odd. I knew I was meeting them this morning. I thought we were going to renegotiate next year's numbers, stuff of that nature. But you hang up the phone and you get that pit in your stomach, like that something's not right. And so my whole 8-minute drive to the Marriott, I'm playing mental gymnastics of, we were just up 30% through COVID. Like things are going great. Like this can't be a bad meeting. And sure enough, I walk in, and as soon as my butt hits the chair, Josh, there's no easy way to tell you this. You're no longer managing partner. We're moving in a different direction. And my whole world comes down. And part of that is, as you look back and reflect, so much of us, including myself, place our identity in what we do. And, my identity was trapped in all the wrong things, from accolades to positional power to money, all the different things the Bible tells us not to place our identity in, because those become idols. And for me, I go home that morning. Well, let me say this. I made it 2 minutes down the road before I had to pull off. I couldn't see because I was bawling. So I wasn't fit to drive at that point. Like this is my whole world crashing down. Everything I'd worked for, ran that firm and owned that firm for 5 years now. And my plan was from age 35 to 55 to grow that as big as possible and have as much impact as possible. And the rug was pulled out from underneath me, and God said, I got a different plan for you. And so now I'm in this 6-month legal battle. The reason they terminated me is because that individual that I described sued me for discrimination, not because I actually discriminated, but because he was trying to move along his career, and he thought in his infinite wisdom that was the best way to do it, to get me out of the way. So they removed themselves to get themselves from the lawsuit. So I have these 2 legal battles going on at the same time, and I'm just in the mental dumpster going through it. And I've often talked to entrepreneurs about this. It doesn't matter if it's a happy sale or a sad sale like mine. You lose that purpose, and there's a whole different, they're like, you go through the 5 stages of grief, much like losing a loved one. And I had to move through that, and it was tough. It was really, really tough. If I didn't have my faith in God and my family, I'm not sure I'm sitting before you today. Like that's how dark that period was. And being 4 years removed from it, I can now say, like, those 6 months of negotiating that exit, going through what I went through and actually walking through it, turned into being the biggest blessing. Because as I got through those stages of grief, I started to be able to envision the future, and envision a future that was bigger than I had previously imagined. And now being able to spread my impact throughout all entrepreneurship, we're not having this conversation today if that didn't happen. And reason being is, like, I was so tunnel focused on growing the firm and just being a leader of those people that I wouldn't have started the coaching business, wouldn't have written the book, and therefore wouldn't be in front of you today. So it's one of those things where a lot of times we got to let the worst things that happen to us be the best things that happen for us. And oftentimes God's purpose is packaged in pain.
Yeah, that's a great saying, and you're absolutely correct. I talk about this often on the show. When you're absolutely getting your ass kicked, again, the best 2 words you can say is thank you. And I know it doesn't feel like that in the moment. I know if I had given you that advice just prior, or just as you're going through it, like, Josh, this is a good thing, just say thank you. You're going to look at me and go, you know what? Piss off, man. This is not a good thing. But yet, when we look back on life, right, all of these challenges that we've had, there is always not just a silver lining, there's a greater thing at play. Whether, everybody listening, whether it's God, universe, whatever you want to believe in, there always is. I want to ask you specifically, I'm going to say a word, and I'm curious where this will land for you, especially when you think of this individual. When I say the word forgiveness, what does that look like for you, and tying that to the narcissist in this play? How did that play out for you, or are you still in the throes of it?
No, The Bible's very clear on this, and forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you. That's what people get wrong about it. I've never had the opportunity to forgive that person to his face. And I write about it in my book. I named him Richard, so people will recognize that if they choose to pick up the book. Uh, Forgiveness is for you. And I don't know exactly when I got to that point of forgiveness. Uh, that lawsuit with him, because he hired an ambulance chasing attorney to try and get money out of me, uh, that took 2 years. So I would imagine it was sometime after that lawsuit, culminated and we got through it, and my name was cleared. But it was 2 years of a dark cloud following me. Now, I would say, I think I told you this, like my father and my wife, I don't know that they're to the forgiveness point, either with the company that betrayed me or the person that stabbed me in the back. But for me, I had to get to that point. It's interesting as you think about that. I've often told friends this. I don't know that I've said it on a podcast before, but he's still trying to live my life, my old life. And if he even moved to the town that I lived in, a suburb of Madison, it's just a really weird scenario. And I haven't run into him face to face. But if I did, I would say thank you. Not to forgive him to his face or anything. I would just literally say thank you, because it doesn't forgive what he did, or it doesn't make it right what he did to me. But for me, my life is infinitely better because of what happened. So God's always at work and always at play, but you got to walk through it and continue to take those steps into your purpose, or God's purpose in you. And so just remember that forgiveness is for you, not for the other person. Carrying that with you the rest of your life. Like, we've seen instances, I'm sure you have as well, of someone that murdered a child and seen a father in the courtroom forgive that person, which has got to be infinitely harder than what I have to forgive a person for. And some people, they get a name said about them and they can't forgive the person that said the name about. Like, think about the levels or depth of forgiveness, and what you're dealing with probably isn't as tough as the father that forgive that individual in the courtroom. Again, it wasn't for that individual. It was for that father that now has to go on without their daughter or son the rest of their life.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's poison inside your body at the end of the day. And anybody that's listening right now, we all have people we need to forgive. I don't care how far into, your journey, we all do at some point. We come across these resentments and these wrongdoings, right? People do wrong stuff, and that they don't have any real effect on your life unless you allow them to. So I love
Yeah.
that, Josh, that you're able to just say, you know what, thank you. And like you said, it doesn't make it right. And by the way, when you're dealing with narcissists, which is my next question, it can be really challenging, especially if they're in your life a lot, right? You're going to have to go through this forgiveness cycle more than once. That's just the way it works if you choose to have them in your life. You
Yeah.
mentioned that, and I'm so curious. The word narcissism, not a great title somebody wants to carry, I wouldn't think, but yet they're out there, right? And I think it's a lot of things, a lot of insecurities really at play, a lot of, obviously selfishness and other childhood trauma that they haven't dealt with. When you say, I know how to deal with like interviewing for that, I'm curious, what does that look like, brother? Because I'm guessing anybody listening is like, yeah, I want one less narcissist in my life. Like, help me out, Josh. What does that look like?
Well, I forgot one thing on your previous question, and this will bridge us to this one. My coach at the time was asking me one day, he goes, Josh, you seem to be having a lot of empathy and forgiveness for Richard. How you doing for yourself? And that question struck me to my core. I think the hardest person to forgive is ourselves. And I was not doing well with forgiving myself. I was doing better in forgiving the person that hurt me so deeply than I was for myself. But to answer, and so I wanted to add that in there because I think a lot of people struggle with forgiving themselves. Like, we're all human. We weren't given a playbook at this thing called life, and we're gonna screw up. And now it's making amends and moving forward and making sure that you give yourself that grace. And that's what, that's what I had to learn to do. Now, to answer your direct question, I do this a lot in interviews now. So there's some traits that narcissists have, and you spot it. You were spot on with the childhood trauma. The reason I was finding empathy for Richard in that scenario is because I knew his childhood. I knew him so well. Like I helped. He was a young guy when I recruited him and developed him, over the next 5 years. And that was part of my ego or hubris in that scenario. Is I had developed plenty of young, immature people into, more mature, functioning adults and advisors. But they're a hurt child trapped inside an adult body. They had some sort of childhood trauma, and that they're as far as emotions are concerned, they're still an 8-year-old child. And so I could envision that hurt 8-year-old child in this individual and have empathy for that 8-year-old child that's now in an adult body. So what we got to dig into as a leader or someone interviewing to potentially bring someone in to our organization is now I interviewed for business owners. They were all 1099, so I understand HR may have some things to say in a corporate setting for these questions that I'm about to give, but I'm going to give them and allow you to do your research on whether or not you can answer them or not, or ask them or not. So I want to know about their childhood. I want to know what the hardest thing they had to overcome growing up was. I want to know if they had mom and dad in their life. What's the number one value you kept from mom? Like that you carry with you today that she taught you? How about dad? Tell me the same thing. Because those values that they learned early on and they say they still carry with them today are probably true values for them. Now, digging in on more of their adult behavior and seeing if you can raise some red flags is tell me about a past conflict with a coworker of yours. How was that resolved? Tell me more about that situation. And then a superior of yours, same question, but a superior. Tell me what you're looking for is, do they accept any sort of responsibility, any sort of blame? A true narcissist cannot see any fault of their own. So they build this world around them where they are constantly trying to protect themselves. And that's where most people know, well, narcissists are selfish. Yes, because they're constantly trying to operate in this world that is the betterment of them and their future. So narcissists can come off very slick, charismatic, very, very much like a high performer at first. They're brilliant at navigating any different circumstance in their life. So you got to get some questions that allow you to ask for, is there any responsibility or blame acceptance? Because you and I can have a conversation, or you and your wife, or me and my wife can go, we're in an argument and we get through the emotional part of it and we go, yeah, I could see how, 10% of that was my fault, but 90% was theirs. But even that 10%, a narcissist can't see. It is 100% always the other person's fault. Nothing is ever their fault. So if you can line up some questions that can try and kind of pin them into a corner to see if they accept any blame, any responsibility, whatever those questions may be, those are going to raise some red flags. Now, dealing with a narcissist, if you have one in you, in your organization or in your family, you can only deal in facts, not in feelings. They are brilliant at dragging you down to their level, pressing your buttons. They know exactly what buttons to press, and they will get you emotional because in that emotional battlefield, they have way more experience than you. And they're going to gaslight you, and they're going to make you feel like it's your fault, and you're going to feel all of a sudden like you're going crazy because you're seeing the situation one way, but they're so good at painting a different narrative that you're going to feel like you're taking crazy pills. And all of a sudden, for someone that's not emotionally stable or not used to dealing with narcissists, they're going to go, wait, I think this is my fault. When it 100% isn't. It's always a two-way street, but they're going to make you feel like that. So in email responses, in one-on-one conversations, you only deal in facts and you keep things very short and brief. And do not allow them to drag you down into their emotional battlefield.
Yeah, it's really good. I want to I don't recall where I learned this, but when you're dealing with somebody like that, it's I'll give you an acronym. It's plan. Stay on purpose if you're dealing with a narcissist. Always, what is the purpose of my conversation? That's the P. The L is listen to what they're saying, ask questions, and the N is next steps. And the point of all that is, to your point, Josh, they're going to try and take you down. Woe is me. Let me take you down this emotional thing. And it's like, just stay on the purpose of the conversation. Do not allow yourself to get into it. The other thing I just have to, what he just took you through, guys, is called behavioral interviewing. It's absolutely fantastic, whether you're interviewing somebody for being a narcissist or just in general. It's so good the way he asks those questions. Give me an example of X. It's not a yes or no. It's give me an example. And then they actually have to explain a story or something that they lived through. So absolute gold, whether it's hiring or dealing with people. I love that. Chyros. You and I talked about this off air, and I was like, well, I don't really know that word because I didn't. And I know there's a meaning behind it. Tell me the what is the meaning, and tell me a little bit more about the Chyros code, which congrats on the book, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. Chyros was introduced to me as a word back in 2021 when I was going through it. And if you guys all recall 2021, it seemed so far away, but yet so close. We were still in the throes of COVID, and we were coming out of it a little bit in the middle to end of 2021. And, we're trapped on these screens. Some people still working from home, some people just trapped in the fluorescent lights of their office or cubicles. And Kairos, by definition, in the ancient Greek, is a moment or era. I like to actually think of it in modern terms like being in the zone or flow. So anyone that's played sports or anyone that's done any art or anything where they're just absolutely immersed in the project or the sport or the field where time is of no consequence. You are just utterly present with what you're doing. That's how I think about Kairos, because only God can truly live in Kairos time, but we can catch glimpses of it. Chronos time is the time that we're usually, the clock watching, minute by minute, hour by hour, 24 hours in a day. That's Chronos time that we've been accustomed to living. But there's these glimpses of Kairos, and I know if I've just listed a couple examples, people can do it. But like whether it's in sport, or you're so present with your family, or you're so present on a project that you have no idea how much time you just spent on it or what the time was, that's Kairos time. You're so present and in it. There is also a biblical definition, where it's the divine moment when God acts. And so I'm thinking about this definition and this concept, and I'm like, man, the moment is now for us to reclaim our sovereignty as humans and truly live our lives to the fullest and start leaving our legacy daily. And so I started building that framework out, and I named the coaching company Chyros. But then I realized, as I decided I was going to write a book, because I had no intention of being an author until all this stuff happened. I always joke that my English teachers, if they're still alive, will be shocked that not only did I write a book, but became a #1 best-selling author. But the Kairos code, no one really has heard the word Kairos, very few people. And I think it's such an important concept to get across that I really wanted the world to understand the concept and try to have more Kairos moments in their lives.
Yeah, it's the time alone. You bring this up, and this actually happens. It happened on this podcast. I have to be mindful of the time, right? Because we've set a hard stop. But yet when I am in it, I forget about it, and I could just ask questions. We could go on for hours if that was the luxury that we had. And so it is fascinating, brother, when you get into that state of flow, when you are truly just in the moment, not thinking about this outer time that is created. I have to be at this next thing, but I am just truly flowing. It's really, really cool. And yet, as you said, it's kind of fleeting. How do we find it more often, Josh? Have you figured that code out, how to really be able to get into flow or Kairos more, I don't know, frequently, and certainly, more often, I guess is the best way I can say it.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we have now that's a troublesome spot is our phones. And I think people talk about that frequently, but I want to just put in a different perspective is we're in a attention seeking culture. And so our phone, and it started, you and I are old enough, you probably had a BlackBerry.
I did.
Yeah, me too. It's one of the first phones I had when I started my business, and that red blinking light, and it conditioned us to, if there was a red blinking light at the top of that phone, that we have a message or a text or something of that nature, we got to check it to clear that red blinking light. Well, now look at all the apps. It's a red circle that says we missed a notification. So they condition us psychologically. So part of it is putting the phone away, because if we do that, the distractions are minimized. And now we can start to be in the moment, or be present where our feet are. But if we were looking at morning routines, if you check any influencer's profile, they're going to tell you the perfect morning routine. Well, let me tell you the perfect morning routine. It's your morning routine, not some influencers, not anyone else. It's the intention of a morning routine is to get your mind ready for battle. And so if you can do some breathing exercises, if you can meditate or pray, if you can get your body into flow, meaning movement, stretching, exercise, whatever it may be, you can get your mind ready for the day. If you can actually set intentions for the day. This is one of the things that I think people miss the most is I have an intention every time I switch gears, just like I did before getting into this podcast. And it's very brief. It's be the best hour of JM's day. And then when I move to the next thing, I'm going to say that to myself internally again. I'm going to a client right after this, be the best hour of their day. And that's just my intention. So it puts me on notice of like, I'm bringing my best self to this moment. And so I think that if we can start thinking about an intention prior to going into whatever we're doing, is this is what I'm going to bring to the table, not necessarily the outcome, but your behavior. So like, I'm not saying that JM's going to get off this podcast and go, man, that was the best hour of my day. But that's my intention. And hopefully that comes to fruition. It's going to be more likely that it comes to fruition if I have that intention than versus if we just come into this with no intentions. So I think that's part of it. The other piece of it I laid out, and there's my 5 bridges and making sure that we get priorities right in life. But I just want to use this example. I'm not a basketball player. I was a football player, so I played football. I basically play football on the basketball court. I'm just an athlete. The reason I use this example is because it's dumb. It wasn't my sport. I'm playing a pickup basketball game, and it was one of those days where I couldn't miss. And there were so few, this is why I remember it versus my football field days where there were so many. I had no concept of time. In fact, everything slowed down. The game slowed down. I saw the bucket clear. I saw the ball in my hand clear. My form was great. Like everything was clear. And that's the point, if we can capture that. So I had the privilege of interviewing Drew Hanlon and David Nurse, who coached some NBA superstars. And I'll ask them the question, how do we get into flow more? How do we get in the zone more? And they both had the same answer. Josh, that's like $1 trillion question. If either of us could, like, I interviewed them separately, but they both said the same thing. If either of us could figure this out, like, we'd be billionaires. Because not only would we teach our NBA superstars, we'd teach all entrepreneurs and all business owners and all C-suite leaders. Like, it's fleeting, like you said. But I think if we start with intention and we actually focus our full intent on being so present in the moment, with whether it's with our kids, a client, a business meeting, if you're on stage, whatever it may be, that time is of no consequence, and you are just there to give every fiber of your being, you have a better chance of catching those Chyros moments.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, if you're in sales or any occupation, but really I think of sales when you're talking about that, going into each new appointment and saying, I'm going to be the best hour of such and such's day, you got a much better chance than if you're dragging all this other stuff behind you, all the things that you have going on, which we all have, right? The family life we have, the whatever happened this morning, last evening. If you can reset and be that intentional, oh man, you have a great chance at success. I want to ask you, you mentioned morning routines is your best morning routine, and you're a humble guy. You're also like 10% body fat, pretty in shape guy. Let's share with the audience because, again, I think everybody wants to be at that kind of, we want to be in great shape. What does that look like for you, brother? Is it something that you are very intentional about on a daily basis? Is it a routine? Are you just blessed? God said, you know what, Josh is going to be shredded, and that's just the way it is. What does that look like?
No, the shredded comes from hard work, but the morning routine, I did not get those blessed genetics. In fact, I was a very skinny guy up until college. Wish I had those 30 pounds in high school. I would have been a beast. But the morning routine for me looks like this. And again, I want to be clear that you can steal pieces of this, but you got to feel what's right for you. That's why I joke about the influencers on the internet. There is no perfect routine other than what works for you. So mine consists of going for a ruck. I got a Go rucksack. I just keep adding weight to it anytime it feels easy. But the key thing I did about a year ago was take my AirPods out. I was trying to be the high achieving, productive person, and I would have a podcast playing while I'm rucking. And the key thing I did was take my AirPods out so that I could actually listen to God and get through some of my own mental stuff. I want God in my head before I get in my head every single day. So with that, then I get home, I get the coffee going, I hydrate some more. I will do some Wim Hof breathing exercises. And in that, I'm doing short prayers on my breath holds. And then I get into some Bible reading or the book I'm reading. Depends on how much time I'm allotting myself that morning. Uh, but I always want God in my head before I get in my head because I know He's going to be able to fight those battles for me better than I could just alone. And so, whatever those are for people, I'm just like, have your mind ready for battle. The one key rule I have for anyone as far as perfect morning routine is do not pick this up. Do not pick this phone up. Do not check your notifications. Do not check your email. Just keep it away from you until your mind's ready for battle. Because if you open your email, if you open up social media, you're essentially playing Russian roulette with your mind. You don't know if you're going to get a bad notification. You don't know if you're going to get a bad email. So don't do it. So don't give yourself that opportunity. You got to get yourself ready for war that day before anything else comes across your plate. So that's the one rule I have with a perfect morning routine. But other than that, what I do throughout the day, I love cold water therapy. I know you do as well. I got a spring on my property that I love. Otherwise, I go to a gym later in the day. And that's my separation point. I'll give people that as well. So I go to lift heavy weights in between work and home. And the reason I do is it's a mental reset. There's a couple reasons. For men, peak testosterone time tends to be late afternoon. So I feel like I can lift heavier at that time than I can early in the morning on an empty stomach. But secondly, it's a separation. I'm going from work Josh to dad Josh. And I want to have, kind of reset my mind, reset my body, and be able to go home and be that best husband and father that I can be.
Yeah, again, there's the intentionality, right? You don't want to take that and not giving yourself that opportunity. I remember that when my marriage was the biggest challenge, I had like a 5-minute commute, maybe even less. It was really, really short from my work to home. And now my commute's like 10 seconds because I work at home primarily. But one thing that I've had to learn to do, Josh, is exactly that. Like, hey, let's decompress. Let's make sure I'm not taking my work stuff into my family life because they didn't ask for that. That's not part of what they signed up for. And it's not fair to them. And yet, so often, every one of us is guilty of bringing that into our lives, having pillow talk with our wife about the business. It doesn't belong there, guys. It just doesn't. So I love the intentionality behind it. Speaking of Chronos time, I'm looking at the clock. It's ripping by. I want to make sure anything I didn't ask you, because I could ask you questions all day, man. You and I, again, the ruck thing, that's funny because it's the first thing I do every morning when I'm taking the dog out. It's like, I love that. But what would you want to make sure and to get across to the audience? What didn't I know enough to ask you, Josh, that you want to make sure to share with the audience?
Well, I think the biggest thing is probably the 5 bridges of Chyros that I put in the book. When everything came crashing down for me, I realized I screwed some things up. And mostly it was about prioritization. When I thought I lost everything, it wasn't everything. What I didn't lose was my relationship with God. I still had my health. and I still had my family. And in those moments, you realize I had everything I really needed. Now, I was 41 at the time, like I still have to provide for that family and I got to figure out what's next. But if I died today, that was all that I needed. I didn't need the accolades, the positional power, all those the business that I owned, all the different things. But I was so in the pits that when the boxes showed up in my house, when they moved all those boxes in my house, I'm like, it took me like a month to open them. I see all this stuff, and I'm like, none of it matters. I can't take any of it with me when I die. And so I really figured out that if I'm not right with God, nothing else matters. So bridge number one for me is spiritual. Now I realize people may not believe what I believe, but you got to realize that we're spiritual beings because we've all been to a funeral and realized the body's present, the spirit's gone. And so whatever your spiritual beliefs are, getting right with those so that you understand your purpose on this planet. So then I moved to bridge two and I'm like, man, if I don't have my health mentally, emotionally, or physically, I can't be the best hour of someone's day. I can't be the best father. I can't be the best husband. I can't be the best leader. So I have to put my oxygen mask on first before assisting others. So bridge two became internal. And then bridge three is relationships, because this is where I was prioritizing things wrong. I was coming out of COVID and caring more about my 250 employees than I was with my time with my family. And so I have an order to relationships because they're the fruit of life. So God first, yourself second, your spouse if you have one, your kids if you have them, and then everyone else. And our job is to not screw up that order. But the bridge we all skip to is bridge four, which is environment. It's your professional, your financial, and I also put creative and joy in there, but people don't necessarily think about those as adults. They think about the professional and financial. And it's not inherently wrong. We do want to be successful. We do have a purpose on this planet, but we're conditioned from little by saying, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then in high school, it gets reinforced with, what are you going to go to college for? And in college, what are you going to do with that degree? And it's all circled around the what instead of the who. And I think the more appropriate question is, who do you want to be when you grow up? And there's a lot of latitude underneath that for positions, finances, all that different stuff. But if we then get those first four bridges right, bridge five is legacy. And the two things people get wrong about legacy all the time is they think it's 30 years from today, sometime down in the future. And the other thing is they think it's about things. And it is not about the things you leave behind. It's about what you leave in others. And you're actually leaving your legacy every single day you're blessed to wake up. Every single day. So again, going back to intention, am I choosing to leave a legacy today? You're leaving that legacy through every interaction that you have, every action you take, or every action you don't take. It's not sometime down the road. None of us know when our last day is going to be. So start leaving your legacy every single day.
Yeah, it's really good, man. And it's real easy to lose sight of that, as you mentioned. And I think anybody listening, if we're being honest, we've lost sight of that. I know I certainly did. And that was when, again, my marriage was on the rocks and I was almost 300 pounds. That I wasn't addressing these pillars that you're talking about. Gosh, brother, I love what you're doing. You and the legacy that you are creating through Chyros and all that you're doing, it's really awesome, brother. If people are like, yeah, man, this guy's cool. I want to learn more of what he's doing. I want to find the book. Where's the best place for my audience to connect with you?
Best place to connect to joshkosnick.com. I have great SEO because I've never met another Josh Kosnick. And so same thing with all social media platforms at Josh Kosnick. The book, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the Chyros Code, or go directly to the website, my website, and you can find it there as well. One thing I'll leave with everyone is in the book, or if you didn't pick up the book, you can go to the website and take my LQ assessment. So those 5 bridges I discussed, you can in the assessment you'll get an individual score on how you're doing on those 5 bridges, as well as a totality score. It's meant to be taken as much as possible, but at least once a year. It's free. So for you guys out there, if you want to understand how you're prioritizing life or not prioritizing correctly, take that free assessment, really start to close those gaps and work hard, especially this time of year. We're going into 2026. It's a great time to check in on that and see where you want to set some goals for next year and start meaningfully attacking those on a daily basis.
Yeah, man, go check it out. It's free to you guys. And again, I'm telling you, this guy and I separated at birth or something because they're just a brother from another mother. Man, I just appreciate you, Josh. And I thank you for coming on and sharing so many nuggets with people and really being authentic. It's a beautiful place.
Oh, I appreciate you, brother. It's been an honor, and I know we'll can reconnect here soon.
Josh's story is a reminder that the worst moments in your career are often the doorway to the life you were actually meant to build. If this conversation hit you the way it hit me, please take 10 seconds and pass it on to a leader who needs a little more courage today. And if you want more of the episodes that help you lead with purpose, power, and clarity, make sure you're following so you never miss what's next. I appreciate all you guys so much. Until next time, let's go win.